Hi, I'm Greg from Onewheel. Today we're going to be going over the steps to the perfect wing tack, as well as the two most crucial and often overlooked components of it. We're also going to go over an easy step-by-step progression that you can start practicing right away to reduce disruptions to your precious water time, and as well as minimize your taco exposure when you're actually trying out this maneuver for the first time. Since despite what Instagram may have you believe, maximum taco exposure is unfortunately not what we've signed up for as wingers. So it may seem pedantic, but the first thing you want to get right when you're practicing tacks is your grip. Now, for normal riding, I prefer this alternating grip. Biomechanically, I find it easier to generate power pumping. I find it more comfortable to hold the wing long term, and I just find it leads to less strain on my body. But right before you do a tack, it's going to be a lot easier if you switch to this double overhand grip. If you already ride like this, even better, you can get into your tacks right away. But regardless, I recommend you practicing and training tacks with this double overhand grip. The next key point on the tack is to enter it with as much speed as you feel comfortable, because we want to leave the tack at the bare minimum above the stall speed of our foil. And throughout the tack itself, not only are you outside of wing power, but you're dragging yourself and your wing upwind, and you're performing an aggressive turn. All of these things reduce your speed, and to get that smooth, graceful feeling tack, you want to be leaving with significantly more speed than the stall speed of your foil, so that you don't need to pump the hand wing or pump your board to just keep yourself on foil. Along a similar theme, you want to enter the tack as high on the mast as you feel comfortable. This is basically a little reservoir of potential energy you can convert into speed as you drop down. And you also make it less likely to dig rail and slow yourself down that way as you come around. What I like to do when I'm heading straight upwind is I actually put a little bit of pressure on my backhand to get some lift from the wing and stay higher on the mast longer. You don't want to go overboard with this because you can create a bunch of drag, but once you do a few tacks, you'll kind of feel this out and get that extra little boost. So our first critical and overlooked point of the tack is what I call the elbow peak. Now I think this is so broadly missed because it breaks a nearly universal rule of turning, which is that you lead a turn with your head. So whether I'm riding a bicycle or operating a firearm, you're gonna lead with your head and the rest of your body follows. No different with foiling. You're gonna be on your board, initiate the turn with your head, shoulders, hips, knees, feet follow, head, shoulders, hips, knees, feet. With the tack, it is no different. At the beginning, I'm gonna start turning upwind, initiating the turn with my head, but at some point, I need to transition to leading with my elbow to bring that around smoothly. Toe side, it's the same, leading the turn with my head, but as I cross that upwind point, my elbow starts leading the turn. If I don't do that and I try to keep leading with my head, I get all jammed up when I do the transition, and you're gonna end up tacoing and falling. Same thing, toe side. If I'm coming into this tack here and I keep trying to lead with my head, the wing is in the wrong position and I'm gonna get thrown over. The key to timing this is really simple. If you imagine the wind coming straight at me, this is my upwind direction here. As I'm turning, at some point before I get to the apex, I've got to start looking underneath my elbow. And as long as I'm looking underneath my elbow and not above it, I'm gonna be in a great position because my eyes, my sight is basically constantly pushing my elbow into the perfect place. So that's all I do now is as I'm heading upwind, before I hit that apex of all the way, I ensure that I'm looking underneath my elbow, and every time it puts the wing in that perfect spot. Same thing going toe side. As I'm looking fully upwind, I make sure that I transition to looking underneath my elbow, and the wind will do the rest. For those of you who've already been attempting the tack in the water and have been frustrated at not being able to get it consistently, I suspect this tip alone might make a huge difference. For the rest of you guys that haven't attempted yet, stay tuned to the rest of the video because we're gonna break down a progression that's gonna make it a lot less frustrating for you to get on the water and execute this maneuver. The next critical step with the wing is the release or throw. And the reason I say release or a throw is a lot depends on the dynamic of your individual wing. On one extreme side, some wings are super locked in roll, which makes them pretty easy to fly because you've got that stability. Flagging out, it can be nice for beginners because they really lock in position, so you can actually use it more for balance. But of course, that makes them more difficult to tack. So when you're coming around, you really need to throw that wing over to get it to go over to the other side. The reason you can flip your wing over with that throw is that it's impossible for a wing to be flying like this if you've got the boom this way. The wind is always gonna push it straight. So for a wing that doesn't roll over as cleanly, if you just let go of it here, you can come around and then you get this thing where when you grab it, the wind rips it around. Whereas if you throw at that point when you look through your hand, you get that nice rollover and you're gonna make your job a lot cleaner. So if you want a wing that tacks really easy, you're looking one for that has that looser roll action. The downside of a wing that has really loose roll is if it's not designed properly for surfing, it can be really twitchy and all over the place. I have used wings that are quite loose in roll and are smooth in surf, but you can't lean on them the same as one that's really locked in. While not as critical, I do have a fun tip for you guys on the hand switch. Going into the tack, I like to have my front hand a little bit more forward than I might normally. This way, as I come around and let go of my backhand, I can bring it right behind my front hand, and I naturally end up in this really powered up position on the wing to accelerate me out of the tack and in the new direction. The final step in the tack is, of course, riding out. And ideally, you've maintained as much speed as you can and you're turning away fast and going upwind the new direction. While we're practicing this maneuver though, feel free to bear a little bit downwind, pump your wing or pump your board to regain that speed and head off in your new direction. So the first step in your tack progression should be practicing this on land. You want to find a nice 15 or 20 knot day and some smooth wind and just go back and forth between toe side and heel side tacks. So all we're trying to do here is just build that muscle memory of the timing, because the tack is really just all about timing. And I could spend 10 or 15 minutes talking and trying to give you that nuance in the timing, but you're gonna learn it yourself. Your body's gonna learn it through repetitions. And the way we can increase the speed of that adoption is by maximizing the number of reps and decreasing the interval between those reps. And that's really only possible on land, because on the water, you only have a bunch of setup time between each attempt. And then of course, you're gonna eventually go back to jibing after a few falls because, hey, you're probably trying to have fun out there and enjoy your session. So by repping it out on land, you're just gonna make so much more progress in building that muscle memory of timing the maneuver. And when you do bring it to the water, it's just gonna be so much easier. So the next progression from just standing there is actually simulating the movement of the tack itself. So you'd start and you'd walk in one direction, start going upwind, do the elbow peak, throw your wing in the new direction and go this way. Adjust your grip, you're walking in this direction and throw your wing over, elbow peak and ride out. So with 15 knots of wind, this can be a remarkably realistic way to practice the technique. Of course, if you've got a Onewheel or a Surfskate or something like that, and you're well versed in that, that's even better. With the pair wing tack, for example, I tried a few on the water, knowing how to wing tack already, and I just blew up and almost tacoed a couple times. Then I did about 100 or 200 of them on the Surfskate, and immediately on my next session, I got them right away, and I think I got 5 in a row. So That was so valuable, and I can't stress this enough. Please don't just immediately try this in the water. Do it on land, rep it up, build your muscle memory, and you're gonna be so much more successful and have so much more fun in the process. Once you've got your muscle memory established on the beach, I'd recommend being really deliberate with transitioning your practice to the water. Wait for that perfect day right in the sweet spot of your favorite wing. Too light wind and you'll struggle to ride out with enough speed, and too strong wind, you just increase your tendency to get injured or have something blow up. As you get better at the tack, you'll be able to progress through the range of your wing. But to start out, you want that sweet spot of your favorite wing, whether it's a 4 meter or 5 meter. When you get that day presented to you, I'd also recommend deciding that today I will not jibe. Every transition I do is going to be an attempted tack. And you don't even need to be deliberate and do multiple tacks, but through your natural session, you're gonna have to be doing transitions, and just make sure every single one of those is a tack, and do that for a few sessions, and I think you'll get it a lot faster than you think. If you're struggling to build up the nerve to attempt your first tack, one thing I'd recommend is just starting to get more comfortable with riding upwind and doing that elbow peak, and then bearing off and going back downwind. The more often you get up to that position, the more comfortable you're gonna be with the idea of finishing the maneuver in the new direction. The other little tip I'd give you is to remove your harness line from your wing. Whatever setup you're using to harness in, it's just gonna get in the way when you're switching your hands around, and that's just not necessary for the first couple sessions you're practicing it. Personally, I always ride with a harness. I find it a much nicer and easier way to get upwind, but even now, I often catch my hand in my harness line, and it doesn't usually ruin my tack, but it makes it more awkward. So set yourself up for success, remove that stuff, and start your practice with nice clean handles or a boom. I think of the tack as one of the fundamental intermediate winger skills. Not only is it fun and stylish to perform, but you can also make more ground upwind by not setting back every time you do a transition. It's also a great progression to a bunch of other fun maneuvers like backwind 360s and whatnot. And I'll give you a little teaser on my personal favorite, which is tacking onto a wave. There's a really quick progression on this if you can already tack, and it's just, instead of sending your wing overhead as you turn upwind, you're going to that tack and drop your wing down to flag out, turn around through that tack, switch hands, and then just bring your wing forward into that new direction. Now, you can notice here, I've got my leash wrapped around my body. An additional tip on that is, before you go into it, if you pre-wrap your leash, when you drop your wing and flag out and come around, you'll notice that my leash is unwrapped from my body. The next step from here is simply to do the same setup. When you see a nice big wave coming and you're riding heel side, turn onto that wave, flag out your wing, switch hands, and then just ride it out toe side. The last thing I'll say on the tack is that if you're still not coming around with enough speed to ride out, it really comes down to one in about 5 things. Either you're not entering with enough speed, your turn is not smooth enough to maintain your speed, you're not re-engaging your wing soon enough, or your angle isn't right. If you're exiting too early and you're heading upwind aggressively, or you're holding on too late and coming downwind, you're just not going to be able to get that smooth acceleration out of the tack. And lastly, maybe you should just try an Onewheel. As always, love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Are these techniques working for you? How's your muscle memory transitioning to your on the water experience? And I want to apologize for the slowness of releasing this video. It's been a super busy summer here at Omen, so I haven't had a chance to record these, but I've got a ton of backlog content and a bunch of stuff I've been meaning to shoot. So subscribe to our channel and we will get after it together.